Yeah, there'll be any problem with the recording.
Be able to see the presentations later in their own time.
Yeah.
We need everybody to agree and put their thumbs up.
Are we all happy? Yeah. Any objections? Perhaps that's easiest. Can't see any. Right. Okay. We'll record. I think probably the best way to do this sort of intros and things is that I've just pressed the participant list and I see there's 20 there. And I presume we're all in the same order. So as I'm at the top, I'll introduce myself as Brian Wilson. I chair I'm chair of the project management group on for Tyldesley CIC. Ian is next, and then if we proceed down with Anna, Gary, and if you just say a very short, brief introduction, who you are, who you represent. Okay. So, sorry, Anna. Yeah, go on.
All I was going to say is, if you then asking questions, obviously Brian's going to introduce everybody from the HAS. Then I'm obviously making the introductions for the traders group. But all I will say is, if you're going to ask a question, just say your name and where you're from. It's just so much easier than going through. As we go through the meeting, if you do ask a question, raise your hands. Yeah, so it's like I'll say Anna from the Little Chipper. So then everyone on the HAS board knows who and what your business and where, what your business is about. That's just the easiest way, I think, to do it.
From past experience, Anna, people forget, and then they're wondering if we do a quick rundown first, and then pick it up from there. So go on, Ian.
Now we'll go next. Hello, I'm Ian. I'm a Tyldesley resident, and I'm community engagement manager for the HAS. And unfortunately, Brian, the order you see it in isn't the order everybody else sees it in.
Yeah.
Okay, best laid plans. Go. Well, I'll call you out right as I get it. I've got Alan Ravenhill next.
Hi, Alan Ravenhill from HLP Architects, Liverpool, and we're looking at the preparation of a design guide.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Anna?
And obviously everyone knows me, chair of the Tyldesley Traders Association, current chair, and also I'm on the part of the project board for the HAS as well, which is why I suggested that we amalgamate and have a joint meeting together just to keep everybody abreast of what's going on.
Okay, Ian Williams next on my list.
Thank you, Brian. Ian Williams, Clippers Hairdressers, and also on the Tyldesley Traders Association.
Okay, John Harrison.
Yeah, I'm John Harrison. I'm the Managing Director and Funeral Director at Dootson and Harrison Funeral Services.
Okay, thanks. Michelle Brocklehurst.
She got trouble with the internet, apparently.
Right. She's there in name only, but we'll come back to her. We've done Alan Ravenhill and Gemma Atkinson.
Hiya, I'm Gemma Atkinson, a Tyldesley resident, but I also the partnership manager for Wigan Borough Community Partnership, and we set up VCSE infrastructure. Well, we are the VCSE infrastructure organisation, supporting community groups and charities across the borough.
Okay, thanks, Gemma. Gary Deere.
Yeah, Gary Deere from Living Rooms, 240 Elliott Street, furniture, home accessories.
Right. Kate Mitchell.
Hello, yeah, I'm Kate and I work for Creative Heritage, and we're the project managers dealing with sort of the building side of things, and I deal sort of the day-to-day stuff, helping property owners access the grant funding.
Okay. Paul Costello.
Yeah, Paul Costello, I'm Director for Tills and I help with the cultural delivery, and also I'm chair of the Pelican Centre.
Thanks, Paul. Philip. I haven't got a surname.
Yeah, I'm Philip Ashton. Hi. I'm pharmacist and director of Davina Pharmacy on Elliott Street. Just seeing what's going on with this project, so quite interested to observe.
Right. Richard MacDonald.
Hello, I'm Richard MacDonald. I'm a conservation design planner from Wigan Council, and I'm the liaison between the council and Fort Tyldesley.
Thanks. Right, Rick Toner.
Hi, I'm Rick Toner, Comfort and Care at the mobility shop on Stanley Street.
Right, thanks. Joanne Marshall.
Yeah, Joanne Marshall, and I'm the councillor for Tyldesley Ward and also a member of the HAS board.
Joanne Grundy.
Hiya, sheep ribbon and scroll, trader within Tyldesley. So, hello.
And Julie Grundy.
Hi, shocking internet, local resident, Rotarian, and driving community engagement for Tyldesley.
Kate Dixon.
No, I'm the other Kate, helping that Kate to do the project management stuff on the building side.
Right. Owen Barton.
Hi there, I'm Owen Barton. I'm a regeneration officer at Knowsley Council. We have a HAS in Prescott in Knowsley, but I also ran the Prescott THI, which is a similar programme to the HAS, which I'm here to talk to you.
Right. Philip Ashton, were you on before and we've got a surname now? Philip Ashton? You right. Colin Roberts.
Colin, unmute yourself, mate.
Unmute yourself, Colin.
Morning, an IT lesson once this morning.
Unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All thumbs up. Colin Roberts. I would like to say IT, but that's wrong. Local accountant, CJ Robertson Partners. With Tyldesley Traders.
Okay. Welcome to you all. And have I missed anybody out? No. Right. We're going there, and if we can try and remember when we do speak, just announce who and where from. If it's not said previously. Okay, so I'll call that my introductions. I don't know whether you want to add anything, Anna.
I've just got a few apologies. I've just got a few apologies for not being able to get to this meeting. They really wanted to, but obviously they've got children. The pick-up time. So that's Irene, Elaine Rind, Laura Hayes, and Emma Fernandez have said, sorry that they can't be at this meeting.
Yes, please. Do you want me diary?
No, it's all right.
Okay.
One of them. I've got Irene, Elaine Rind, Laura Hayes, and who else was it?
Emma Fernandez.
Emma Fernandez.
From Hudson's. So Laura's from Best Foot Forward. Is it Best Foot Forward? Yeah, Best Foot Forward. Emma's from Hudson's. Elaine obviously has the bank studio, the bank tattoo studio. And Irene, I'm not sure where Irene's from. Do you know, Joanne? Is Irene?
Perfect Crafting.
Perfect Crafting. I thought it might be perfect. So yeah.
The competition.
No competition, darling. She does craft, I do sewing. There's no competition. There's nothing wrong with healthy competition anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's item 1 out of the way. Item 2, we've got a presentation from, I think it's Owen Barton, isn't it, from Prescott?
Yeah, because I think Owen's got a meeting that he's got to get. You've got a meeting, have you, Owen, to get to?
That's right. Yeah.
Switched it around just slightly.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I've got to meet our ward councillors at 4. So yes, thank you very much for adjusting the running order. It's really helpful. Yeah, shall I try? I'll try and share my screen. I'll see if this works. Always the moment of truth. Oh no.
That people put it on speaker view so they can see your screen full size, Owen, if there's any text on there that people want to look at. Because at the top corner of your screen it says speaker view.
Enable sharing though first, Ian.
Technical.
Oh, the host has disabled participant screening. It says I get a little message up.
Oh, I've just enabled sharing.
Oh, great. Oh, right, great. There it is. If I then go to this, full screen mode. So how's that work? Does that sort of come on to full screen for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep, loud and clear. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I'll try and run through this sort of nice and quickly because I know you've got a packed agenda. So yeah, I'm here just to talk about Prescott Townscape Heritage Initiative, which is a lottery programme not unlike a Heritage Action Zone, which we ran in Prescott since 2013. Just as a start, hopefully the slides are refreshing at an okay speed for everyone. But before I started work on the THI, I was very sceptical about these area-based schemes. You know, this is an example of one. I'm not sort of criticising this particular one, but it's that example of, yeah, you can put timber shop fronts on a street, but you know, what difference does it make if it's not part of a wider picture? Or how do people feel attached, or how do you attach it, or how do you get momentum going when your project isn't particularly great, it isn't that inspiring? On the next slide, it also applies to what the council does with its public realm, if you've got public realm in Tyldesley that you're doing. But I mean, here you've got the sea of very expensive granite paving, but I don't really see what this adds to the town centre, what the space is used for, how it adds a new dimension or use to the town centre. So with any area-based scheme, it's how you do it, how you plan it out, and how you deliver it and make a difference, rather than just saying, we were going to improve this area, we spent the money on it, we're going to do so many shop fronts, we did those. It's about being a bit more strategic and trying to get quality in there as well. I'll just give you a very, very quick run through of where Prescott is. So this is on the Goffs map of 1390. So it's the north is on the left-hand side, but yeah, Prescott between Liverpool and Manchester, Chester and Preston. One of the few medieval towns in modern day Merseyside. Was the centre of a very large parish with a very, very important, well-used market. And yeah, I won't go through all the points there down the left, but you can see the sort of diversity and richness of its heritage. And yeah, for the 18th century, 19th century, is a watchmaking centre, which paved the way for it becoming a cable making centre in the electrical age throughout the 20th century. So it kind of joined the Industrial Revolution quite late, but when it did, it really went for it. Because on this next slide, you can see this aerial photograph of Prescott from the mid 20th century. You can see the size of the cable works there is almost the same size as the rest of the town, whereas by the 90s, the cable making industry had left Prescott altogether, and its site was just derelict, leaving the market town quite stranded with industrial wasteland next to it. But it is, yeah, one of the most deprived boroughs in the country. Some of the most deprived, super output areas are within Prescott and within its setting. It's divorced from its what was its old large parish. It's now part of Knowsley, and is the smallest of the three town centres there in that borough. It had no real evening economy of note, and was sandwiched between two really popular attractions, one of which I'm sure everyone's heard of, the Knowsley Safari Park. Over 600,000 visitors per year, and Cable's retail park, which is anchored by a Tesco superstore, 2 million visitors there per year, but the town centre underperforming, and therefore people aren't investing in the buildings, they become under-maintained, it creates that spiral of decline. And the conservation area has always been on the at-risk register with Historic England since the register started. But people still love Prescott, it's still got history and heritage, people are still very much attached to it. But it does face a lot of economic problems. On this slide, the two photos are basically Prescott as it was in 2013, two different images on the main shopping street, Eccleston Street. You can see there a mixture of external roller shutters, large signs, empty upper floors, neglected upper floors. And the THI was basically a project to try and start to arrest this decline and turn the corner. So it was, had a budget of 3.2 million, of which the majority was focused on building grants for privately owned buildings. That's where the bulk of the funding went. It was a high rate of grants. We also had 3 public realm projects. But also something I don't really talk about in this presentation is the large community engagement employment strand. We're actually involved and engaged people in heritage. So it wasn't just capital works that we're doing. We're actually reaching out to people and getting them engaged. And over the course of the projects, we engaged I think the stats are about 14,000 people over 6 years. But I know from when I was asked to do this presentation, the focus should be on the shop front. So I'll just go through some of the projects now as quickly as I can. But this was the very first one, 40 High Street. Again, you can see it sort of replaced the shop front, got all the paintwork off the brick, refurbished the flat and the upper floor. and it was a nice prominent building to start with on the corner of the main road. And in this case, it was the building owner that was the grantee. But again, with this one, although it had large signs to start with, one of the comments we got back is someone went in the shop and said, "It's about time Prescott had a dry cleaners," because maybe it just didn't register with people as they were passing by, but the transformation and the new shopfront did. But yeah, that was our very first project. Our second project, this is on the main shopping street on Eccleston Street. You can see on the before photo on the left, derelict upper floors that just weren't viable to put to any use. They were converted to 4 flats. I think 2 of them still have the original occupants in 7 years later. And with the shopfront, it was a case of, again, you can see the shop goes across 2 different buildings, so it's making it look like 2 buildings and 2 shopfronts again, but to have it unified and reading as one business. And on this one, there are external shutters, but we've sort of hidden them in the design of the shopfront. So there's like a kind of lattice that goes over the shop windows with this one. But yeah, the feedback we had with this one, the business owned the building and they were seriously considering closing this branch until the THI came along. They've actually used the kind of style and modelling, the logo type, the typeface and things on their other branches around Merseyside now. So it's been sort of gone from something they want to get rid of to inspiring how they actually market the other branches of the business. On the next slide, again, one of the smaller buildings that we did, Age UK, again on the main shopping street, just taking a 60s shop front with an external shutter and a large sign, and just replacing it with something that's in timber and good proportions and based on a historic photograph. Unfortunately, given the last 12 months, Age UK have closed this branch. I suppose it's hard to coordinate volunteers and things with lockdown and the impacts. But there were 7 different businesses applied to take on this unit, and the winner was Kitchen 54, who are opening soon. So that's that picture on the right, basically. The new people who are taking on that shop, and that's quite nice, to go from a charity shop to something that's part of the evening economy. It shows how the town centre's turning a corner, and independent businesses are coming in, and we're growing that evening economy. On the next slide, this is just next to Age UK. You can probably see Age UK on the far right of each picture. Again, working with a chain retailer, Max Spielman, the shopfront restoration based on an old photograph of that particular shop. But again, getting rid of the external roller shutters, which in this case actually obscured the doorway a bit on the corner. And yeah, the manager of this branch told me that basically it felt like a brand new shop with all the extra window height, all the extra light, but they were getting additional customers in addition to the regulars, which is nice. Same shop, just the side of it, you can see we've transformed an area of blank wall that wasn't really doing much on the left there, the far left, the white area, with a false shop front. And we had a community artwork done there with artists who designed the mosaic alongside the community, and people could come along and put the tiles in a workshop in the shopping centre. And that small piece of art, there's kind of 3 panels that are on there, costed all £3,000, but it's just made a really nice little difference to this sort of little side street in the town centre. And that's this kind of approach to quality and detail is something that we've focused on in the THI, and I hope you can sort of see that in the shop fronts as well. It isn't just sort of slapping a timber shop front on there, it's actually looking at the proportions, the detail and quality, even if it's something that people just read subconsciously. On this next slide, an empty shop, you can see the kind of iron ties on the left-hand pictures. A bit of rebuilding went on with that building to properly repair it. But again, we based the new shop front, the blue one on the right, on a historic photo, which is the top right there, taken in about 1903 when it was a chemist's. So we've sort of reinstated a shop front based on a historic precedent. And again, that's something that gets people really excited when you're actually going back to something that was there previously, that rather than just inventing a shop front for the scheme. And yeah, the refurbishment of this building was enough to bring in a new occupier. And we're careful there to make sure they didn't just plaster off the windows with posters, sort of posters set back off the windows, so it still has quite a nice open shop front. 2 more, sorry, I won't go through this is just like the highlights of the shop front. There'll be 19 in all. I'm just showing a few of them. But again, with this one, quite an ordinary building, not listed, but it turned out it had huge structural problems. You can probably see over where it says flosses. There's a couple of iron ties, some diagonal cracks, and mortar that's been sort of slapped in. But you know, that's obviously been repaired as part of these works. But we've again restored the shop fronts based on again another historic photograph, which I've just left out just for brevity of this presentation. But again, it's two independent businesses. It makes it look, you know, a lot smarter, a lot more inviting than it was before. On the side street here on Atherton Street, a former solicitor's office that was empty for 25 years, I think, 25 years. And it was converted to a cafe at ground floor and 2 apartments in the upper floors. So again, the space was doing nothing basically for a quarter of a century. And you know, the business there, you can see the internal photograph of it there on the right. Prescott didn't have anything like this before, you know, quite a mod. It had cafes, but there were, you know, sort of ones that were part of bakeries and things like that. A bit like a clean, fresh, modern kind of cafe bistro was sort of unheard of in Prescott. And it's the first of a dozen new cafes, bars or restaurants that have opened in Prescott since 2018. And again, its image is very much based on Prescott, the way they've decorated it and referenced the building's history inside. But yeah, that was a particularly good project. Pleased that would happen. Again, it just wasn't viable to do without the grant funding. And another one, again, the Girls on Top salon here own the building as well. So it's their building and their business here. And they fell in love with the historic photo of the building there on the left when it was the public benefit boot company. And so we restored the shop front in line with the old photo, but just made the doorway wider for walking frames and things like that, and replaced the shutter with just gates to protect the doorway there. But it's important to consider that in the middle photograph and on the right-hand photo, the shop is closed in both photos, but it's so much more inviting and attractive with the open shop front. And they were also able to let the unused upper floor to a beautician. So you got a salon on the ground floor and a sublet sort of to a tenant as a beautician upstairs. Again, yeah, another one of our more dramatic transformations, 1930s building, going back to sort of polished granite and steel shop front, steel windows. Again, a former bookmaker's shop, but again, made over to Pinion, which is a bar bistro. And this one was important because the type of offer it has, it actually turned other businesses' heads to think, well, if they're setting up shop and spending all this money, there must be, you know, it must be worth our while doing this. And it sort of has created its own sort of ripple effect of other people, such as that kitchen 54 a few slides ago, who have moved into Prescott. Again, just another shop front, one of the more recent ones. That's it in the 1920s on the left, as it was before we started work in the middle, and as we finished it on the right. And really with that one, it's just getting rid of a roller shutter and a massive sign, and actually just uncovering a 1920s shop front that was mainly there. And again, the vacant upper floor was refurbished as a 3-bed flat. And again, this next slide, just to show that the grants aren't just concentrated on the face of the buildings. This is the back of that same building. So the back of Melissa's Spa and Nails, again, the same kind of repair and refurbishment happened there. And yeah, I'll just finish, sorry, Ian, for just overrunning as well. Just a few slides. This is the general project area of the THI. So the buildings are the red and orange buildings that we had to go at to try and fund. The green areas of the public realm. And just in case people are sort of watching this presentation and thinking, well, yeah, you've improved a few buildings and, you know, done up a couple of streets for public realm. So what? It's mainly about that multiplier impact. The fact that you start making the improvements attracts other external funders, you know, other sources of funding for the town centre, or private investment to think, actually, why don't we do that as well? Why don't we be part of this? And you kind of build a groundswell, a bit of a circle of virtue. So although the THI started in 2013, as it started to be successful, the council put in a master plan for the town centre, which set more of a vision and a strategy that people could buy into. And that brought with it things like the Shakespeare North Playhouse. And if I move to the next slide, yeah, oh, sorry, before I move on to the next slide, the yellow is basically the buildings and the areas of the public realm that we ended up funding. You think, yes, so what? It's just a proportion of the town centre. It hasn't solved all of its problems, and it was never going to solve all of its problems, but it's a start. It's the spark that perhaps lights the fire if it's done well. So the next slide, these areas highlighted in blue are things that have happened that the THI hasn't funded. So all of Eccleston Street, that street through the middle, running sort of left to right, has all been paved to the tune of £8 million with city region funding. But again, that was off the success of the THI. The car park on the left here is the site of the Shakespeare North Playhouse. But again, because we had a successful regeneration project running, it made it more straightforward to get funding from central government, for the city region, and for the council to look at its own reserves to bring this major project forward as well. And as I say, the private sector moved in looking at other buildings that the THI didn't cover, to convert them to upper floors to flats, to fill in gap sites, to open new businesses. And on the next slide, the red are the areas that I'm aware of will be improved in the future, either because they've got planning permission, or I know another business is going to move in. And hopefully for this last slide, you can see how it's almost starting to colour in the whole town centre. And it just started with one project. Now it's just a sort of multitude of different projects or different investments that people are making that are collectively transforming the town centre. And that's the sort of THI in a nutshell. So I suppose if you do the project well and kind of make the change that you want to see, other people start to buy in, and you, as I say, you can build that momentum. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. And yes, sorry, it's just a bit of a whistle stop presentation on the whole scheme. It's been a long scheme. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Owen. That's very informative, and gives us some. I think it opens things up and shows what a bit of imagination can do. Shall we get back to the normal screen? Have anybody got questions or comments on Owen's presentation, which I thought was very useful?
Yeah, it's Gary. Just wanted to ask, that looks great, Prescott. I don't know whether you can compare Tyldesley town centre to Prescott town centre. For instance, one question would be, is that a through road or is that a pedestrianised retail spot?
It's pedestrianised. It's a funny town centre in that to actually see the town centre, if you're driving through, you have to park up somewhere, get out your car and walk in, and then you reach the main street. It's very unusual town centre that its core is actually hidden from view.
Yeah, have you been
driving through or on a bus?
Have you been?
I haven't. No.
No. Okay.
No. Unfortunately, no.
The other thing I noticed, which was huge, totally different to what Tyldesley has got, and that is the footpaths. In some cases, ours are no wider than a metre wide. So you step out the door and literally your next step's in the road. So that's a great bonus for Preston, as it is in like Monton, for instance, and other big wide pedestrian areas and two-way traffic. Ours is a one-way traffic, which I think that's fundamental to the whole town, really, and everything that we do in it. The other thing was I noticed there was a car park that you had to the left.
Yeah.
Are you aware of how many spaces that offers?
I think that particular one it's now the size of the playhouse, it's about 50 spaces. But
50, it's not huge then.
No, not huge.
Okay.
No, and it was and across all of our town centre car parks, the level of occupancy is fairly low. It rarely rises above sort of 50-60%. So we can afford to lose that particular one.
And again, I think it's mad important now for retail and high streets for just from a profile point of view, and that was the lack of shutters, and you've removed shutters in effect. You could call Tyldesley Shutter Alley to a degree. The complete contrast. So that was something else I would look at if that was something we would do. But look, it looks great. The transformation of some of those stores was really good. That's it.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I mean,
Thanks,
with
Gary.
roller shutters, yeah, we always aim to put internal ones in or gates or things like that as an alternative as well. So there's still security.
I'm not a fan of shutters. Full stop.
And right, thanks, Gary. Ian, did you want to say anything or?
Yeah, just a couple of points. First one is really your funding originally was Townscape Heritage Fund, and obviously you delivered that piece of work. How important was your delivering of that project successfully? How important was that to lead on to you to get the HAS funding afterwards? Was it easy to lead from one to the next? I'm just thinking about our legacy. You know, if I do a good job with this HAS funding, how easy is it then to attract funding? Is it a snowball effect?
Yeah, I think the THI massively helped with the HAS application because it showed we had a track record in this kind of project before, whether it's improving the buildings of public realm or engaging and involving, either businesses or the local residents and community. Yeah, it sort of gives the external funder, in this case Historic England, confidence in the organisation's ability to run this kind of project. Yeah, it definitely helps. And as I say, it helps with other things like getting funding for repaving Eccleston Street, and it certainly helped with the playhouse as well. And it's that thing, once, that kind of snowball effect. Once you deliver one project well, it sort of starts to open doors for others.
And can I ask one supplementary question, please, as well? I've got to measure a lot of the outputs and outcomes of our project in Tyldesley, and we've recently installed some footfall monitors to manage that process or monitor that process. Can you tell me what the effect was on footfall in the town pre and post THI intervention, please?
Okay, we've only got one footfall monitor in the entire town centre. We're actually having to fit two more for the HAS. We're just getting that done this month. So and unfortunately, our one counter as well was out of action for about 18 months, right, in just before COVID. But from the data we had, it stayed. It honestly, to be honest, it stayed at the same level. It didn't massively change the level of footfall, but I think what we're seeing is that it was being more spread over the course of the day. It wasn't as quiet in the afternoon, and certainly people were using the town centre more in the evening, and we're getting counted then. But yeah, because I think at the same time that we've been improving the town centre, there's a pedestrianised shopping centre that's just off the main road, main shopping street, that's just getting worse and worse, more and more vacant, and more of a ghost town. So I think for the improvements we made there, things fell away with the shopping centre's traffic. But yeah, I'm sorry I don't have the full up-to-date stats. It's really unfortunate that.
It's probably a good time now to drop in a quick question we've got from Julie with her poor Wi-Fi. Her house is only across there. She could probably hop onto mine if I give her the code for it. She's asking, do you have any record of the occupancy of shops pre and post the project? And any information on the uniqueness of the trade? So I guess she's asking there about, are there any boutique businesses or small independent traders that have filled that void, or is it nationals that have come in?
Okay, I think before the if I go back to sort of 2012, I think that the average vacancy rate was about 15%. So yeah, much higher than an average town centre. And I think pre-pandemic, by the time we sort of got on there, it was down to, it must be only about 6 or 7% in the main shopping area, in the actual shopping street. So that shopping centre that I mentioned has basically got a huge concentration of vacant units, but that's somewhere privately owned and beyond our sort of influence. But when you're actually on the main shopping streets, there's hardly any vacant units, which is good because it was noticeably sort of higher before.
So I think we've gone down from about 15% to 6 or 7% vacancy. And in terms of new businesses, we did have a use survey done a few months ago, and leisure has just nudged into the lead as a proportion. So while retail and services have fallen back to a degree, it's been cafes, takeaways, bars, restaurants that have opened. They have tended to be independent. In fact, I think COVID's accelerated chain stores closing. You know, things like Age UK went during COVID. So did the Oxfam, things like that. And of course, banks nationally have closed down. But there's no shortage of entrepreneurs who are looking to move in and occupy these vacant units. There's a lot higher turn. You know, when places have become vacant, they're vacant for far less time as well, which is something else I've noticed over the years.
Ian, could I just add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually I live in Knowsley. I only reside. I didn't realise you were going to have Owen on. I only reside about 10 miles away from Prescott, and I'll be honest with you. Prescott about 10 years ago wasn't really a place you'd sort of migrate to for shopping or anything, but it is surprisingly how it has substantially changed. And actually, I do actually visit it quite often as a place just to go for a little bit of different shopping. I do agree, as someone mentioned before, it is primarily pedestrianised, which does make it a lot easy, and they have sorted out the parking, which facilitates all that. So, but it is dramatic how the whole streetscape has changed.
Thanks, Alan. Any other comments or questions? Go on, Anna.
You just said then, Owen, that when properties become vacant, then it's not very long before they're actually occupied once again. Are you talking about renovated buildings, or are you talking about any general building?
Oh, in general, really, yeah. If I treat the shopping centre as an exception, because its units are just difficult to let. I don't think it's sort of managed as well as it could be. The actual on the street units, yeah, they tend to be often there's no even to let sign. It's someone's already approached them and got it lined up. And we've got a few where
and that's
a few more where people are just looking to.
And that's regardless of whether it's been. That's regardless of whether it's been renovated or not, whether it's had the HAS treatment, whether it's had the treatment done to the front of it.
Yes, yeah. People are still looking to take them on anyway. I think it's built that kind of groundswell where people are attracted to the town centre. They may improve the shops themselves when they move in, or may just sort of give it a bit of a refresh. But yeah, whether they've been granted or not, there's a fairly quick turnover or turnaround.
Can I just ask one more, Brian?
Go on, Ian.
It's only a quick one. When you were going through your presentation, Owen, you talked about a unit that came available, and you said quite a few people applied for it, and then a winner was chosen.
Yeah.
Is that?
Oh, sorry.
There's a competition for these units then, or how did that?
Sorry, it was. Yeah, sorry, go on.
How does that work?
Oh yeah. It was all just a private let. It was all through an estate agent, and basically, I think they'd had 7 applications to rent the property. With like firm offers on the table, and the bistro was the one that they chose in the end, out of the ones available. But yeah, I call it a winner, but more like they just put in the best offer, I guess.
Okay, it's just that we've got a proliferation of takeaways on our high street, and I don't think we need many more. That's just my personal opinion.
To be fair though, the majority. I mean, I've lived around here obviously all my life, and be around Tyldesley, it's always had a high concentration of food outlets as the norm anyway. You know, yeah, there's been probably a handful more over the last sort of 10, 15 years, but it has always been, because it did have a vibrant evening scene.
Yeah.
Had a vibrant evening scene before the main pull for the town was burnt down.
Is that how many fooderies, eating places there are in Tyldesley?
Say that again, Gary.
Does anyone have the figure of how many eating places there are in Tyldesley, be it a takeaway, be it a chippy, be it a place? I've got the figure, that's all I'm saying.
Have you got the figure?
And it's 20% of the high street. There's 24 units in total.
Right.
That's below the national average, I think, that as well, isn't it?
Is that an average, you say?
I think it's below the national average.
What, for a high street of that size? We're only talking 130 stores tops, 130 retail units are available, and 24 of those are food. So I don't know what the average is. I think you only do the average on how many units are available on the street.
Yeah, I read it somewhere late last year. I was quite surprised to find that out, actually.
Well, some years ago, and I've been in retail since my first shop was in '79, as it happens. In those days, what used to happen, the council, you would approach the council to have a shop in a high street, in a precinct or wherever, and if there was too many fooderies in there, for instance, if it was 24, then you just wouldn't go in. Now I get the impression now you turn up and you pay your money, you're in. And I think that's another issue that wants sorting out. I think that's wrong. But I'm just voicing my opinion here. Let's just get a bit of this going round. Nothing against you there, Anna, at all. Your chips are beautiful.
Hey, I've only had the tender of that building. That's only been in sort of my ownership for it's 15 years now.
Yeah.
But that building has been a chip shop for over 100 years.
No, and that's fine. I'm suggesting
possibly close between 100 to 150. I'm not 100% sure, but I only go off the knowledge of an old gentleman who came in when we first took over. And so, I mean, you know, it has been a chip shop for many, many years. But I understand what you're saying, because
no control, basically.
Well, I
do what you want, basically.
Yeah. Well,
let's have another place in there.
Yeah, if you let me come in, Alan, I think Richard MacDonald, who's the next speaker, will probably be able to answer your point in more detail than I. But from my experience as a former member of the planning committee, the council has no control, you know, over the use of a shop. If it's a shop, it's very little the council can do to stop anyone continuing its use as a shop in whatever guise. So the planning committee don't have a lot of control, and certainly they cannot use one thing that was always stressed to us. You cannot use the sort of too many argument, that because you know it's what they tended to call a trader objection. The planning committee I just aren't allowed to use that as a reason for refusing an application, even if consent is needed to change its use. But anyway, is that all the questions for Owen? And can I thank, on behalf of us all, thank Owen for that. I found it very useful, and you know, I think it gives us an opportunity to see what can be done, albeit we're in a very different situation in Tyldesley, in that as Gary says, we've got narrow footways, and we've no pedestrianised area other than potentially, you know, maybe this is where we have to give some thought, is Stanley Street, which you know, with the exception of the odd bus, we could perhaps make greater use of its pedestrianisation. But I think we need to press on, and thank you, Owen, and let you get away to your meeting. It's been most useful, your contribution.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you very much, Brian. And I'm happy in better times when we're allowed to show people around Prescott, so you can actually see the projects in person, and all the ones that I didn't include in the presentation. Yeah, be delighted to show you around.
Yeah, we are trying to organise a trip when COVID permits. Okay. Well, thanks very much,
everyone.
Right.
Dash for another meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
And now, next on my list of speakers is Richard MacDonald from the Planning Department, who's going to talk us through various elements of planning law and conservation law and put us in the picture on that. So I'll hand over now to Richard. Do you want a screen, Richard, or?
Yes, I can share my screen. Am I allowed to, Ian? Yeah, I am. That's fine.
Let Ian do whatever he does.
That's okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine,
Brilliant.
Ian. Fine.
So yeah, thanks for the introduction, Brian. My name is Richard, and I work for Wigan Council in the Planning Department. I'm a conservation officer, but I also deal with urban design. And as I said, I am also the liaison between the Fort Tyldesley Has and the council. Full disclosure, I actually worked on the Prescott THI with Owen a couple of years ago. So it was nice to revisit some old places that I remember and seeing what they've eventually turned out like. And I thought it was very interesting with what I think was Gary said before, that, you know, Tyldesley is a different beast to Prescott and it's not pedestrianised, etc. And whilst that is true in some ways, in other ways, I see a lot of parallels in terms of the fact that they are both conservation areas at risk. In fact, that they are communities that traditionally had a very strong industry that supported them, that disappeared in the 80s and 90s, and is dealing with that sort of post-industrial, decline and renaissance. And I think Tyldesley is ideally positioned to the place where Prescott probably was about 10 years ago. So, you know, I can see strong parallels, but I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the fact that, you know, Tyldesley is a conservation area. Let me just share my screen if I can. And what that means in terms of planning, and in terms of what that means for the High Street Has going forward. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. So I suppose a very good place to start is answering the question, the very basic sort of question: what is a conservation area anyway? Well, I suppose the simplest way to explain it is that they are some of the most important historic areas in the country. It's a designation that is given to areas that have special architectural or historic interest, which it is considered is very important to preserve or enhance. That's the technical definition of what they are, really. They can range from things such as rural villages and hamlets to warehouse areas in the middle of big cities like Manchester. But a lot of them are traditional high streets, much like Elliott Street is in Tyldesley. And they are, I suppose, they are the important places that people have built their lives around and that have historic importance, not just for their buildings and their character, but also because people are invested in them and people build their own identities around them. And that's true of all our high streets. But when it's got conservation area status, it means it's that little bit more special. It places it on a national register of being an important place. And people value these conservation areas for their uniqueness, you know, what makes them distinct, the fact they visually often look very nice, as well as their history. And this is reflected, and as Ian sort of said, Owen said before, if an area like this can be well maintained and is invested in and looked after, and people are made to feel that it's a special area, it will drive up other people considering it special as well. And it can positively affect occupancy rates, prices of properties, economic activity, etc. So to give you a brief overview of where we are in Wigan as a borough, we have 23 conservation areas spread across the borough. They range from very small ones in villages to major ones like Bridgewater Canal in Lee, for instance. And what it means is that when a development comes into the planning system, when a planning application arrives, we have to take into account as a planning authority the desirability of preserving or enhancing the character and appearance of that area. And that is given special attention in the planning process. So whereas in other areas, you can put a planning application in, and as long as it meets the building regulations criteria and, you know, it isn't something that's going to badly affect the area, it will be approved. In conservation areas, we can actually say, well, actually, no, this affects the character of the area and affects the appearance of it, and therefore we can ask for something of higher quality or refuse. There's also a duty on local councils to make plans for their conservation areas. Basically, they've got to formulate and publicise proposals to preserve them and enhance them. And that is available to the public, and these documents should be available for anybody living in the area or owning a building in the area to give them guidance on what is acceptable. So we've got that in Tyldesley in the form of the conservation area appraisal. Now we're a little bit behind with conservation area appraisals. Most local authorities are. Mainly because of the lack of resources they've had over the past 10 years. The last conservation area appraisal for Tyldesley was done in 2008. And back then it was a very small conservation area. Here's a historic map from the 1920s, I think. And outlined in yellow on that map is where the conservation area was as it was designated. The main area around Top Chapel, Markland's building, the main square. But in 2008, when it was reappraised, it was considered that the entire of Elliott Street was of great importance, and so it was expanded to cover quite a large area, including many of the absolutely fabulous little terraces which run off Elliott Street. So this gives you an idea of the current state of play of the conservation area, where it runs to, where it covers. One thing to say about this map is that every time the council reappraises a conservation area, it has to go to public consultation. It was done in 2008, and over the course of the next few years, as part of our historic environment strategy within the borough, we are hoping to reappraise all our conservation areas, and so this map could change in the future. But this is where we are at the moment. There's some misconceptions about what a conservation area actually means. And one of the big ones is that it doesn't mean that change isn't allowed. That's not what it's about. We recognise, of course, that these areas have to be vibrant. They have to be living economies. You know, they have to keep bringing footfall and money and business in. We can't just stick them in a big block of aspic and leave it like that. What it does mean, though, is that the change can be better managed. It must be managed to protect what makes the area special, protect its appearance, and keeping what makes Tyldesley unique, and doesn't turn it into a generic high street that you'll find anywhere across the country. You've got to think about it, why that's important. Well, it's the reason why people go to day trips and holidays to places like York and Chester and not Milton Keynes. They're much prettier, nicer places to go and see because they've got that historic character. They've got that rich depth of history behind them. As the designated conservation area, means that the council has stronger planning controls, so we can ensure that things that go up are better designed and higher quality. As I said earlier, and as hopefully Owen has demonstrated, if you make a more attractive area, you can attract more businesses, better footfall, more customers. Historic England have done research. Oops, I'll go back a bit, sorry. Historic England have done research, and they found that well-maintained conservation areas can actually increase property prices by 8 to 9% at the market over a non-conservation area. And I suppose fundamentally, it really is about people having pride in their local area and wanting to go there. And I think Alan identified that when he said, you know, he lives near Prescott, and he started going there once the investment has started to be made. And that is, I suppose, true for everywhere, and Tyldesley is exactly the same. You know, we want people who live here to have pride in their high street. Clearly you do. You are the Traders Association for the town. You love your town. You want it to be the best that it can be. And this can be a way to help get there. And one of the big things, of course, is that having conservation area status does enable you to access funding opportunities that wouldn't necessarily be there otherwise, such as the Townscape Heritage Initiative in Prescott or the High Street Heritage Action Zone, which is going on now. They are only allowed, they were only given, you're only eligible if you were a conservation area. Owen mentioned as well that conservation areas, well, Prescott was at risk on the at-risk register, and there is a national at-risk register for all heritage assets across the country, and Tyldesley is on there. You can see the status of it there. It's not the best reading, condition very bad, trend deteriorating, which is probably one of the reasons why you're successful in accessing this funding, because we think it can be saved. We think we can rescue it and bring it back up again. If you want to know, I'm not going to go through the history of Tyldesley. I'm sure you all know much more than I do about it, but I would advise you to go and have a look at the conservation area appraisal from 2008. Because it's not just about what makes the area special. It does actually have a list of what the potential issues are. And I'm sure Gary will be pleased to see that roller shutters are picked up in there. It identifies emerging threats which may seriously affect the quality of the area, but it also provides guidelines, and it gives you an idea of what we are looking at as a planning department when we look at any planning application that comes in. It sets out what we sort of expect in terms of design quality, materials, etc., etc. So it is an actual a useful document to have, really. I have mentioned that there are stronger planning controls within conservation areas, and I will run through them, some of them very quickly. And this can always be a bit of a negative side of things in some ways, but I don't want you to look at it like that. I want you to see it actually as this being about ensuring quality, really. It's a quality control process more than something to bash people over the head with. So the major one is that quite often in conservation areas, works that normally wouldn't need planning permission often do need planning permission. You may have certain permitted development rights that are not eligible in conservation areas which have what they call Article 4 directions. You generally need consents for things like signage and advertisement. Planning applications have to respect the heritage values in the area, and we expect them to come with heritage statements. Now, that doesn't have to be anything big or costly, because every heritage statement needs to be in proportion to the change, really, or the impact it will have. So it can range from a huge document for the change of a building to a few paragraphs. They're both heritage statements, and as long as they do what they're meant to, they're both equally valid. I've mentioned the shop fronts, security grills, shutters and illuminator signage. It's usually more controlled in conservation areas, needs express planning consent. The replacement of doors and windows with a new design or new materials usually requires that permission. And demolition is usually not allowed within conservation areas without a plan being in place for something to replace it. You can't just get something demolished without having something there to replace it. So that usually requires permission. That's a very quick overview, and I will share these slides with you all so you can look at them in your own time. But just to sort of finish my little section, what I will say is that as a council, we want to work with you. We don't want to be in an adversarial process. You know, we love early engagement, and we have published quite a lot of guidance online. There's the conservation area appraisal that I mentioned. We have a shopfront design guide specifically designed for shopfronts across the borough, and I know part of the HAS project is actually working on one even more specific just for Tyldesley. And we've got the Wigan House Extensions design guide as well, just because our conservation area in Tyldesley does cover some residential properties. I've also put on here my contact number and my colleague Ian's contact number as the conservation officers. We do encourage you to speak with us at an early opportunity. And as you are a traders group, should also mention that Wigan Council also offers free independent business advice to help businesses. You can see the contact email address there. Hopefully that's been a brief overview of what conservation areas are for, what they do and how they're valuable. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Who wants to go first?
Who wants?
Who wants to go first out of the traders with questions? Anybody? Rick?
Thanks for that, Richard. That was quite interesting. Just going into a bit of detail on one of your slides, you said minor modifications may need planning permission. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Certainly. And yes, things that probably in other areas might not need planning consent certainly can require it in conservation areas. And what I mean by that really is, I suppose, is that thing of come and speak to us. Painting a shop front, for instance, not going to cause any issues, as long as you're not painting it bright pink or something, which can affect, even in a normal high street, I think that could upset certain people. But what we'd always say is speak to us first. It's always worth running it past myself or Ian, and we can give you a bit of advice. Does this change actually require consent or does it not? And one thing about historic environments and historic buildings is everything is on a case-by-case basis. It's not like general planning law, which puts out lots of generalities. Something that might be absolutely fine for one particular building could actually have a really serious effect on another particular building because of the different heritage qualities they have and the significance they have. So it's very difficult for me to tell you exactly what that means, other than it's always best to check, because mistakes can prove costly in the long run.
Can I ask an additional question to that?
Yeah, feel free.
Might be confusion, but reading a number of different documents, there seems to be a generality that says certain materials will never be accepted. For example, steel, metal frames, UPVC doors and windows. I read in the Prescott document that they even go as low as what type of wood to use. Is that true, or is that just a misconception?
Generally in conservation areas, we prefer to see traditional materials because of the character that they have is often very important to the area, especially in Tyldesley, which is essentially a Victorian high street. You obviously wouldn't have had PVC and plastics and things like that. So, we would prefer to see traditional materials. The thing about the specific type of wood, that's usually down to the quality of the wood. You can easily make a Victorian style shop from plywood and plasterboard, paint it and stick some veneer on it. It might look the part, but it will only look the part for about 5 years before water gets into it and it rots away. If you're going to do it well, do it properly in high quality, wood that can last a long time. I know people say that, well, wood rots. Well, I can show you some windows in the borough that have been here for 200 years. Show me a UPVC window that's been more than 30 years. I'd be surprised, really. It's about maintenance and materials and quality that lasts. And that's one of the important things about conservation areas. We aren't saving this for ourselves, really. We're preserving these historic things for the benefits of the people of the future, and so that generations not yet here can still say, wow, isn't this a good place? So longevity is an important part of material choices.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Anna, Richard, could you go back to the unshare screen or whatever you do?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
Thanks. Right, okay.
Gone now. Yeah.
I think Anna had a question.
Yeah, it's just an observation. I understand with heritage areas, like you're explaining, but why is there this need to grasp on and keep things sort of way back when? What about progressing forwards with, we're in the 21st century now. We've left the 20th century. I understand what some people like wood. Me personally, I don't, because it needs a lot of maintaining. When you're trying to run a business, if you can get something that looks like wood, but in a more durable form, why would that not be considered? If it was in the same patterns and everything, why could you not go down that route? Why does it have to specifically be wood?
It's a good and valid question. Why do we have to say wood? Well, first of all, you've sort of asked two questions there. First of all, why do we sort of consider it important to keep the past? Yeah,
really,
right, okay.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Conservation areas, then they're not common areas. It's not like every street's a conservation area. They are a very small percentage of the streets we've got in the country, and they are picked for their particular historic importance. And the very nature of them says that they are of historic importance, and that's why we want to keep them. Losing them would be a loss to everybody, and the loss to, in the big scheme of things, a loss to the nation as a whole. Your second question about materials is that whilst you can get things that can imitate traditional materials, they very rarely do in the most successful way. Things are getting better now, but certainly, even when you see UPVC windows that are designed to look like wood, they don't look like wood, and you can easily spot that they're not wood. You cannot get the same material quality from modern materials that you can from traditional things like wood and timber. It's a fact, really, and it's hard to realize, but when you see them side by side, it's something that I would say you'll notice without noticing. It's something that works on a very, very subconscious level almost. Once it's pointed out, you'll notice it straight away, but you've already known that it's not quite right, and there've been studies done on that, and that's one of the reasons why really we go for it. Hope that answers your question.
I've got quite a few more, so I hope you're ready for a few more. But when you say in conservation area, you say, obviously you picked up on one, which was demolishing a building without a plan being actually in place. If that's the case, then I understand it was structurally unsound anyway, but our main pulling building 10 years ago was burnt down, the pub, and that was just demolished, and that site was just left to rot for probably until, well, they actually started work on it, believe it or not, about 5-6 months ago, where they started piling it, but that had no plan whatsoever. Again, you say about conservation area. can anybody agree with me that that town square that we have now is a conservation town square? I don't think it is. So if this is these are the sort of the contradiction, shall we say, of this conservation. It's been in place, like you say, for probably since pre-turn of the century, and it seems as though it's being sort of hammered home now, whereas it's not really been sort of a big issue in the last 20 years, because you've got the old Hudson's fruit and veg shop. You're saying that no metals or anything to be used. That must have had planning permission granted because it was a major overhaul of that building. And it is I think it's a metal frame with big open windows. It's a pharmacy now. So I'm confused. Yeah, really confused.
We've got a couple of questions there as well, and I'll try to address them. The first one about the George and the Dragon site. As I understand it, and this is before I worked here, it suffered an arson attack, was it? It went on fire, yes. And it was burnt down and was structurally unsound. Mm-hmm. Sadly, in cases like that, unless you can be incredibly proactive and get structural conservation surveyors there very quickly, quite often what happens, and I'm not saying this is right, but what often happens is that the building owner will get a surveyor in who will say it's a public health hazard and it can get pulled down under the dangerous building regulations, basically, which trump conservation regulations because
Which, yes, I fully understand that, but it was a long space of time.
But what? Yeah. Come to my second phase. There was a lot of work done with the building site owner to get a planning application through, and it actually was granted quite a long time ago. I don't know the exact date, but I've got a feeling it was quite a number of years ago. The planning application for the site was approved, and that was down simply to the owner to bring it forward and start the work.
That up. It was Yusuf's brother that had bought the site, but he just suddenly died. So that I know that was some of the original delay on it, but that's as much as I do know.
Right. But then it was still left as a site. I mean, even to not be kept maintained.
I mean, the council has actually issued a Section 215 notice on the site previously, and Section 215 notices are used when sites are unsightly, causing harm to amenity. How many? Top of my head, I don't know. I know one's been issued in my time since I've been here, so that's in the last couple of years. I don't know before that.
But this is what I'm saying, over a period of, I mean, it's 10 years since the site burnt down, then obviously I think Yusuf's brother bought it after the initial, because the initial purchaser of that land tried to get planning permission for terraced houses.
Anna, we're going to run out of time on this meeting. Let's have the other presentations and then have the general chat afterwards, because it could be that some of these questions are answered by some of the other presentations.
Yeah, but can I just say that all I'm saying is that it seems a bit contradictory when you've got these sites that have been left like that for so long, and now it's going to be sort of hammered home that it's conservation and it's going to be policed, and it's not done before. I'm just confused as to.
Okay, I'll try and address them. Your second point was about the town square, and is that not a conservation town square? It wasn't before that recent scheme went in either. It was a 1980s scheme that was on the site. Yes. Could it have been done perhaps in a different way? I'm sure it could have done, but that was the decision made at the time to do a contemporary intervention within the conservation area. Why is it being hammered home now, as you put it? Well, it's simply because now is if now when, really, I suppose. The opportunity is there to access funding from Historic England, a lot of money coming into your town, opportunities for your building owners and traders to access this grant scheme. And that money simply would not be there if Wigan was not serious as a council and a planning authority about engaging with its heritage and ensuring that its heritage is protected. Historic England would not give all this money to anywhere if they didn't know the money was being invested. If it was going to disappear 2 years after the project finished and not have any lasting benefits, well, that's a waste of money. So I think what you could say is that although Wigan has not been proactive in its dealing with the historic environment over the last maybe 30 years, certainly with the recent publication of our historic environment strategy and the growing national focus on making high quality local areas of distinctiveness, it's where we are at the moment in terms of looking at areas as being important for their heritage values. So I think it's a mixture of the time is right and the place is right, and we feel that we can make a change for the good in Tyldesley.
On those derelict buildings, definitely the key buildings that you're going to be working on for sure, definitely. But I mean, I always feel as though I sound like a real negative Nelly. But what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is when people are getting the funding, I totally accept that if they're getting funding to do something to their building, then whatever criteria is put in front of them. But why should that then affect? Once the funding's finished and once it's no longer available for everybody, why should that then be the template that you as a planning officer would say, well, this is how we want it looking and this is how you've got to do it? I'm talking, say, 10, 15 years down the future. Say someone wants to update their building and they've always looked after it, and then they have to sort of go to if they don't, I mean, me personally, I'll say it for me, I don't want to use wood. If I ever had to do my front up again, there's no way I would want to use wood because I do not see it as durable. It's costly, it's time consuming. When you've got a business to run, it's the maintenance costs. But then if these buildings are now sort of being put as the blueprint, shall we say, that we've all got to follow, then if there's not going to be any funding further down the line for it, then it's going to be a costly exercise for all of us, any of us in the future.
I mean, I can see your point entirely, but what I'd say to that is that as traders within a conservation area and building owners, etc., there are, regulations, planning laws in place for that reason, and investing into the quality of your area is something that you have to abide by to get the planning consents, really. And I can appreciate where you're coming from.
Planning permission costs also. You say that about
they're out of my control, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, if we're in a conservation area, you say that obviously things that wouldn't ordinarily in a non-conservation area, where you wouldn't have to apply for planning permission, but you would have to in a conservation. Do we get reductions if we have to do it more often, more frequently for minor works? Do we not qualify for a reduction in planning permission costs if we have to do it more frequently?
I mean, in terms of listed building consents, you don't pay for them anyway. But in conservation areas, that's why I said, before, and I said to Gary, I said, speak to us first. It may be that certain changes that you're making do not require, the full consent. They're not deemed to have that impact. We need to speak to us. Keep speaking to us, really. It's what I'd say at the earliest opportunity.
Right. Okay, thanks, Richard. I think perhaps we can come to more questions afterwards. Thank you, Richard. I think you've answered things and as has given us a pretty good idea of where we stand, and I'm anxious that we can widen it out now to Ian, and I think it's related to some of Anna's questions. Without Ian and input and dedication, and we might not have got this action zone. So it's a combination of efforts that we've got this potential investment in our town centre, and I'm certainly.
I don't
keen to get involved to try and make the most of it. But it is what it is. But I think we need to move on with Ian, and then we can come back to further questions which may arise out of Ian's presentation.
Well, hang on, I don't like. I feel as though I'm being dismissed here. I'm trying to put across points from a business point of view, from a business owner's point of view, and I feel as though I'm being cut dead and I'm being cut down. It's like these buildings, the key buildings, shall we say, have been sort of allowed to sort of get into the states that they're in with no intervention from the council, but we're supposedly in a conservation area, and you just say, oh well, it is what it is. Yeah, that may be so for these buildings that are getting funding, but I'm thinking future. I'm thinking down the line, say 10, 15 years. Say somebody wants to sort of do their building up, and they have to spend a lot more money than they would do if it was, and it would be a totally acceptable improvement on the front, but it would cost them a lot more because obviously there's all the heritage and stuff encompassed in it as well. I just feel as though whenever I'm at these meetings, I really do feel as though I am sort of being shut down, and I think I have valid points, but mine are from a business point of view. Mine aren't from, I understand you're getting this money and I know it's a great thing for those buildings that you're working on, but it's not as though it's every building's going to benefit from it, because it will run out at some point.
I think though, I mean, when you take into account what Owen says in his presentation, it's got to start somewhere. You can't kick off an uplift without some sort of ignition, some spark that encourages more people into the area and increases, on the back of the THI in Prescott, they've got massive investment from the city region in non-heritage projects, really. They relayed the street, they're building a new theatre there, brand new building. Owen said that was directly linked to the fact that the THI was proven to be a good project. It's about uplifting everybody and getting it in. It's got to start somewhere. And I totally take on board your point that the council hasn't acted well enough in the past in terms of its conservation duties. But it is something we want to address.
It's not even just conservation. It's just the general look of the front of a building. There's some that have been just left to sort of, just to really look really unsightly.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you, Anna, and I think we all agree with a number of the points you're making. But here's an opportunity. Let's try and make the most of it for the town. Is my view on it. But I'm sorry if you think you're being. I'm sorry if you think you're being shut down. But I don't think anybody's had an opportunity to make as many contributions to these meetings as you have.
Right.
So, but let's continue the debate. I don't want to be accused of shooting. I'm always happy to debate. I'll go on forever talking. But I'm conscious that there's 20 other people around this meeting that may want to make a contribution to other aspects of the agenda, and we can come back, Anna.
Yeah.
So yes, Ian, go on, and then I want Ian Williams, and then I want Ian Tomlinson to make his presentation. Okay.
Rick had a question.
I had the builders in. They've gone through my internet, so I'm now back and running. About 4 or 5 years ago, Joe Platt mentioned about, I don't know if this is the same as what is it Richard that's been saying, 215 notice for the unsightly buildings. There is a lot of shops that, and I will say takeaway shops in the area that do not conform, in my opinion. And Joe said that the Wigan Council was going to be serving notices on the landlords for these businesses to have the shop fronts improved. Are we still going down this line, today?
Can I ask which building you're particularly speaking about, Ian, please?
Well,
is it one in particular?
About walking up and down the street, there's next door to takeaway there are. They're on the right-hand side, the frontages of the shops, just not takeaway. There's a financial office that's next opposite the Lloyd's Pharmacy, which is now Cohen's. That's in disrepair. That's falling down. That really needs doing up. And it's getting hold of these landlords.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that I know Ian's trying to get hold of the gentleman that's got the corner building where the old taxi office is in Elliott Street. Now, I'm sure that there must be a record who owns that building that we can serve notice or approach the people, because they are paying rate somewhere along the line, and there must be on the land registry a list of who actually owns that building.
Yeah.
That we can't serve notices, because what Joe said was they're working through Hindley, then they're doing Atherton, and then they kind of come to Tyldesley to serve notices on these shops. And okay, I know it was why she was a member of Parliament that she spoke, but I wonder if we can pursue this, whether we have to go through James Grundy or not. But some of the shops are disgusting in the shop fronts. If you actually walk down, they're not in keeping. Look, in my opinion, it looks like Beirut when all the shutters are down. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, and I can take that, take your point on board. What I will say is that, and I've mentioned this previously, we have just published the Wigan Historic Environment Strategy, which is the first one the borough's had, and it has an action plan at the back of it. And part of that action plan is to take a proactive stance on enforcement. We have had a big backlog, and we are dealing as a case-by-case basis. I will also say, though, that if a shop front has been done for more than 4 years within a conservation area and nobody's raised an objection to it, it essentially has deemed consent, and we can't act on it that way. But any subsequent changes that are happening, we will be proactive in acting on, and okay. we actually are at the moment. We have to give the building owner, if they've done changes that we don't think are right, we have to give them the opportunity to submit a planning application to get it rectified if they want to. That's their right. And if that planning application is determined to not be acceptable, then we can take enforcement action after that.
Okay, and also one more thing, whether this has got anything to do with us as well, under the Disability Act regarding access to shops. Shops have been built since, I'm not sure what year it came in, I think about 2000 or something. There's shops being built now and they've got steps into every shop. So there's not access into these shops via wheelchair. You can't get into them. I just wondered why are they never checked up on?
I'm not aware of which shops they are, and that is
not, that's not. If I get your email address, I will go around personally and make a list of the shops that have got 6-inch door stops and you can't get in.
Yeah.
Whether we can do anything about it, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We're here to attract people into Tyldesley.
Yeah.
If you've got a wheelchair, you're not going to go into certain shops.
No, and it's interesting. It's something we've looked at with the Frank's Chippy. I mean, I'm sure Ian will mention this, the Frank's Cafe application about accessibility and things, and it is something that, certainly hopefully can be addressed. But yeah, obviously these are issues that sit beyond just pure conservation matters and sit more within sort of, planning and building control. But thanks for raising that issue, and yeah, happy to have my email address. It's on the presentation that I'll share at the end of this.
Lovely. Thank you.
Session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Can we now move on to Ian's presentation, and then we'll take questions of Ian and any other general questions after that. Okay, Ian.
No problem. Rick had a quick question. Did you, Rick, before?
No, it's okay.
You've gone past it. Okay. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'll just share screen with you. Okay, so I'll try not to bore you to sleep because we've gone through a lot of stuff this afternoon. So try and get through this, and then I'll take your questions at the end of it, and hopefully we'll be able to answer a few as I'm going through it. I've got 2 questions that I want to try and answer, and they've come up a few times. Everyone says, what is a HAS? The other question that normally follows on is what is heritage? So we'll go to that second one first of actually what is heritage. And Kate kindly provided me with a Dictionary definition is heritage is anything that's inherited from our ancestors, especially historic buildings and the natural environment. The fact that Tyldesley is built on a hill, I guess, is a natural environment, and it's part of our heritage. And it's also everything we inherit from the past. So it seems to be quite a broad overview of what heritage is. It's not just a place or a species, event, artifact, or a building, but it's also the interactions between them. So why we do things in our town, why we do them the way we do, you know, how we all interact with each other as well. I hope that helps, but I don't think it has, but that's the dictionary definition. Anyway, back to the has. Let's just move this so I can see the screen. The High Street Heritage Action Zone is known as a HAS. It's a programme, it's a nationwide initiative designed to secure improvements to the High Street and for the people that use them. Communities funded by the Ministry for Local Housing, Communities and Local Government, DCMS, Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And the fund is managed by Historic England, the people who hand it out. Historic England have issued 68 HASs across England, and only 2 of them are bottom up. So we are bottom up. I couldn't hear what you said. I wasn't speaking to you. We are bottom up. This is a community-led HAS. Apart from one other HAS in Hastings, all the rest of them are top down. They're being delivered by the local authorities, by local councils. And the project has 3 distinct strands. The first part there, the physical interventions, is the stuff you can see on the high street, the things that Owen showed us earlier on, the physical interventions, the buildings that we're working on, the physical assets that you can see and touch. Alongside that, that's happening quietly at the moment because of COVID, and we're not really able to do it, is we've put together a cultural programme with events and activities that are going to last throughout the next 3 years of this project as it delivers. And underpinning that are some community engagement activities that are there to bring the community on board and to create awareness of heritage and culture and the history of the town and create a little bit of a lasting legacy. So we roll all 3 of these elements together and create the scheme programme or the programme design, what we intend to do and where we intend to be at the end of this and what's going to happen at the end of it. So there is a full programme of what we intend to do and how we intend to deliver it, but we've not got time to go through that today. So we've got involved with this because obviously all high streets face a challenge. It's not just unique to Tyldesley. I wrote this bid before coronavirus, and obviously we've reviewed it again in September last year in light of coronavirus and given it a tweak. Obviously high streets are facing issues from online competition as well. There's a lot of businesses have moved to online because of coronavirus. We've got pressure from out of town outlets such as the Trafford Centre, and we've got a new Lidl at the bottom of the road in Mosley Common. Tesco's up the road, and obviously some of the things that we've discussed earlier on and that Owen mentioned about the lack of investment in the public realm. So the house was born out of these issues that high streets are facing, and Historic England wanted to address it. So the programme's been designed to make high streets more successful by using heritage as a catalyst for the wider economic and social regeneration. It's about building community cohesion and, like Richard and Owen mentioned, a bit of pride in place as well, a bit of love for the town. So Historic England's working with us to implement this package of support that best meets the local needs. And when the bid was written, it was written around the 7 house investment objectives. So we wouldn't have got the funding if we hadn't addressed the 7 themes that Historic England want us to address with this funding. So I'm just going to take you through these 7 themes verbatim. This is what Historic England want, and this is how we've got to address it. So the first one is to revitalise historic high streets by investing in the repair and restoration of vacant or underutilised heritage assets and public realm assets. So again, that's some of the images that Owen showed us earlier, and these are our buildings, obviously, on our high street. The second point is to address changing consumer demands. So, we are going to emerge a different place out of this COVID pandemic, and we need to be ready to take advantage of that and exploit it for the benefit of the community and the traders that work in it. Okay, so we need to address these changing consumer demands by using local historic character and distinctiveness to differentiate our high street from competitors and provide unique and memorable experiences. And obviously, over the last few years, these three businesses have developed, haven't they? 124 Deli, Emma at the Big Apple, and the Hop and Hazelwood. Creating jobs and a lasting legacy is quite important too. So add value to the economic value over the long term, create and facilitate new employment and training opportunities, which can be taken up by local people. So we've already got some volunteers taking part in some heritage training to help us roll out the community engagement strand and the cultural activities. And these will all form part of the legacy further down the line. We also need to invest in clusters of historic buildings. That creates a bit of a wow factor if you do more in a smaller location, and stimulate new private business investments in mixed commercial, leisure, residential and community uses. So obviously the Top Chapel is now a nursery, and Markland's building is going to be turned back into accommodation to encourage people to live and spend time on the high street. So that improves the dwell time and the amount of shoppers on the high street too. Work with local communities to develop a greater understanding and appreciation of the heritage on the high streets. This is a walk we did late last year to look at some of the heritage features and out on the buildings and try and understand a little bit about the heritage on the high street. This event today is about sharing heritage and conservation with you and creating awareness amongst the traders. And also something Alan will speak about in a little bit about the High Street Design Guide. That also fits that remit of sharing this knowledge about heritage and culture and our particular high street. So this is something again that Alan's working on. Work with local businesses to ensure that local needs, knowledge, insights and narratives drive the local investment programme. And obviously when I read that one a couple of years back, that's why I started coming to the traders meetings to talk about what was important to the high street, and now we overcome the issues, you know, to make it thrive again. And obviously part of that process here is Alan's consultation and questionnaire around developing our own high street. So we're driving forward what we want our high street to look like. We're not being told by the council or the local authority what they think our town should be like. And the final element is to create public value through effective use of public resources and through influencing and lobbying the local authority regarding existing and planned regeneration initiatives. So obviously we've got the town hall that's being redeveloped, and obviously the local authority are looking at the library, and there's still some mileage there to do some consultation and lobbying to decide how we want that to pan out in the future. But that is a follow-on project, and it also reaches into what Anna was saying too about, you know, what happens if someone wants to do their shop up in 10 years' time. As part of this process, there's another element that isn't mentioned here, which is called legacy. And as we get towards the middle and the end of this piece of work, I will have an eye on the future. And just like Owen did, he turned it from a THI into a has. And that's why I asked him that question. Where do I get more money so I can help more traders and more community groups in the future? So that when this has money finishes, we've still got a legacy. 4 Tyldesley will still be running, and we'll still have money being pumped in to help this community to develop even further. That's just a whistle-stop tour. So let's take any questions that you've got now. Thank you.
Right. Is there any questions of Ian? And I know Rick, you had a question earlier. Do you want to come in now?
It's taken over that.
Right. Okay.
It was answered by one of the other speakers.
Right, thanks, Rick. Any questions of Ian? Shall we move on to the design guide then, and then we can roll up all the questions in that with Ian and Alan. Are we all right with that? If I move on to Alan Ravenhill and ask him to give us the presentation on the
okay.
the design guide. Okay, go on then, Alan. Sharing screen.
Yeah. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah. Ian, you have to excuse me because obviously there's some overcrossing with information and discussion, so you'll have to forgive me if it's repeated, but I'll keep it as brief as possible. I work for House of Lloyd Architects, and we won the commission to get involved in this project. Our sort of remit is to engage with the local community and ascertain what they are looking for, what they think of the local area, their high street, and in a way draw from them in the formation of this design guide, which hopefully will help shape and a way forward for the high street into the future. So Historic England funding has been granted for Tyldesley to regenerate the local high street as part of the High Street Heritage Action Zone initiative. Plans include the refurbishment of Frank's Cafe to its former glory and the Cellar 5 building. In these uncertain times, the provision of local shops is an essential facility, sustaining and creating a vibrant, healthy community. As part of this process, grant funding will be made available for refurbishing existing shop fronts. Please help us by taking the opportunity to tell us how Tyldesley High Street could be. So that was sort of our remit and our sort of question to the community and local shop owners in the area. Just 1 second. Just generally, people love shopping. It's part of the whole makeup of what we are now. If you're anything like my wife, she can shop for England, so she's made it into an Olympic sport. And I think what's taught us with COVID is, besides performing the logistics of obtaining food and all the necessities, it's actually inherent to people's well-being in many instances, and a way of communicating and mixing with other people. So what are the issues we're currently facing? As Ian quite rightly said, there's a real challenge from online shopping. And as we get sort of exit from COVID, it's the economic climate we find ourselves. We've got the issue of superstores and supermarkets out of town shopping, and also the available cash in people's pockets. As we come out of COVID, once again, a lot of people are finding financial difficulties. So there's quite a lot on the agenda. Just a couple of bits of background. Since 2008, online retailing has increased from about 5% up to about 17%. So it's growing all the time. But it is worth knowing that 65% of people still prefer to shop on the high street compared to 34% online. So there's still a core that still enjoy that experience. I think it's also important to say that online shopping isn't a youth thing. It did start obviously with a younger generation, but I think you can see from the bottom line, the growth in people over 65 using online shopping is growing dramatically. So it's growing across the whole board now. So preferring to shop in store was the most common reason. What were the most common reasons for buying goods or services? So it's still the experience people still want from shopping on the high street. Seeing the product firsthand, loyalty to the shop, and it's a force of habit. Also, payments, security and privacy concerns were raised, and also uncertainty around how to shop online. So there's still a lot of to and fro with online shopping, which doesn't quite hit the experience of high street shopping as it currently stands. So what we've been doing over the last couple of months is engaging with the local community, shop owners, through a questionnaire, which has basically been managed through the Facebook page of For Tyldesley. What we've been asking people to do is go online, complete the online questionnaire and tell us what you think, where you shop, and just general habits of how you use the high street, and in a way how you would like to see the high street improve and move forward. So we have 2 questionnaires at the moment and 1 in development. As I said, 1 is for residents to complete, and to date we have had a massive 398 people complete that and return it to us. And we've also had the questionnaire which has been directed to shopkeepers, and to date we have 32 responses back from that. And I have to thank Ian, because of COVID restrictions, Ian actually did a walk around and posted a paper copy to all the shops, which was really useful. We currently have a youth questionnaire, which is going through development at the moment. We hope to have out early next week, which will obviously target what the young people think of shopping and the experience and their local high street. So that's currently in development at the moment. So what do people want from local high street? From what I've gauged, they want a unique experience. Shopping is a social interactive experience. They want face-to-face contact and advice and familiarity with where they go. They want convenience, so that you don't have to wait. They can purchase and take home immediately. And in certain instances, they can try it on and buy it. So it's that touch, that sense. And also local identity. People feel shops are important to the community identity, and they provide jobs for the local workforce. So social interaction, convenience and identity. So what is a design guide? A design guide sets out recommendations on how to apply good design principles to provide a positive user experience. So what we're trying to facilitate is a design guide that sets out principles for designing of shop fronts. And what it will look at is, it will look at a whole raft of issues in designing and remodeling the shop front. It could be canopies. And what we tried to show, and we will show within the design guide, is we'll try and keep it as visual as possible. And it will be like a tool to reference through when you come to either remodeling or redesigning that shop front. So we give a breakdown and a simple user guide to the way it can be achieved. And you've probably seen that, how it could be elevation on Ian's previous slide. So the things we'll be looking at are shutters, security, access issues, railings, materials, colour, canopies, shop window, signage. So there'll be little sections on each of those, and we're going to try to visually demonstrate those in the design guide and make it as visual as possible. So what we're basically hoping is that please support us, or support the study and tell us what you think by completing the questionnaire. The identity of a town or shop, or a town or place, is closely interwoven with the public spaces and community shares. A thriving local high street can lift spirits and make you feel proud, whereas dead space and empty shops have the opposite effect. A healthy high street with a range of shops, places to meet and other services is the lifeblood of a neighbourhood, providing communities opportunities to socialise, which decreases problems associated with social isolation and loneliness. And that's it, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So any questions, comments on Alan's presentation, and any thoughts from anybody, or indeed on Ian's? We'll link that in as well.
Could I just have to add one thing, Ian?
Yeah.
Just obviously I've been experiencing and listening into everything that everyone said and presented. And one thing I would say is the way the high street look, is so important. People are very discerning now where they shop and how they shop, and they do want that experience. So the way shops look and how they present themselves is so intrinsic to moving forward. And one thing which I think has always been said is Tyldesley has a unique character, and that's something to be in a way built upon and pushed forward.
Yep. Okay. Yes, Rick.
I've got 2 things really. One links back to the presentation we've just seen. You highlighted specifically the 4 shops on Stanley Street that have recently been renovated, and I've got to say look fantastic, even though I don't particularly like some of them. They've only been recently done, so under conservation rules, are they going to be forced to do it in line with the proposals that have been put down?
This is one for Richard if he's still with us, I suppose.
Yeah, obviously, I think it is one for Richard, really, how the planning department are going to really tackle it. I mean, what we're, as architects, we're putting forward a design guide with just the method for applying any changes to it. So I think that those sort of decisions need to be agreed with the planning department, and obviously further discussion. I don't think I could really comment on that on behalf of them.
But could Richard comment on it?
Certainly, yes. Well,
Richard.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah. No. In terms of what we've said about going forward with this project, we have effectively drawn a line under what's already happened on the street, and we would only seek those changes if we would only apply these guidance if a new application came through to change the shop front again. So we're not going to take any retroactive action against anybody in Tyldesley, because we think that's punitive. We don't think it's going to be useful for anybody. It's basically from the start of this project, we've unofficially drawn a line and said this is baseline basically, and going forward we will apply them, but you don't have to worry about we're not coming after you with a big stick, so don't worry.
No, obviously that was a fear, as Anna was saying earlier, the costs.
I understand that.
I think there's also a slightly different angle on the same topic. Take my shop front, for instance. I'm one of the few remaining original fronts.
Yeah.
But I have all the shutters on. They've been there over 20 years. If I was to put a planning application in to make some other kind of change in the future, and I'm talking hypothetically, I don't know, would I be under pressure to remove that shuttering to comply with the planning regs?
If you were, we can't force you to remove the shuttering.
Don't like them, by the way, but they're a necessary evil.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's something we've discussed with Kate and with Alan and Ian and everybody, is that, and I think Owen said this in his presentation, we understand the reasons why roller shutters exist, the security and safety. They can be incorporated into shop fronts in a much less visually intrusive way. They can be internal, or they can be hidden. If you've got a very large traditional shop fronts, they can actually be built into the box frame really and have much less impact. The security gates that can be put on. If you were coming in to change the shutters, we wouldn't allow new shutters or a change of shutters, but we can't force you to take them off. If you were coming in to change something else on that shop front.
Okay. I suppose my second observation, all the way through all the presentations, it's been about increasing the footfall in the town, which is great. But as it stands right now, there's been no mention of the other 2 blockers to increasing footfall in the town. One of them's like the ease of access to the town, i.e. roads, and 2 is the shortage of car parking. We've seen a dramatic, forgetting this year don't count, up to the end of 2020, we've seen a dramatic chop off in footfall, and we can attribute that to the car parking. And a survey was done on behalf of us through TFGM that proved it. But in none of the presentations do we hear that there's joined up thinking with the council that says, yes, we'll need to improve the town to get footfall up, but unless we do the other 2, nothing will happen.
Yeah, I can answer that in a little way. That's obviously far beyond the scope of the HAS scheme. A brand new car park is a major piece of infrastructure investment, and we are very well aware in the council. I mean, this is not the first time I've heard of a car park at Tyldesley being spoken. It's well known about. But what I would say is that it is something that is being spoken about, and I know TFGM have also spoken about it a lot. keep campaigning for it, really, is what I'd say.
It's been agreed. It was agreed pre-COVID. It was agreed on principle. We got the agreement for funding, and it was and then just COVID hit last year, and that has put a stop to. I mean, I don't know if Joanne knows anything more on that. Obviously, Joanne.
Yeah, there's 2 million put aside for the Astley Street Park and Ride to extend that. That's just gone through GMCA. I'm working obviously with TFGM because it's their land. So at some point, I couldn't tell you when the spade's going to go into the ground as yet, obviously with everything that's gone on this year, but that's all planned to go ahead.
Thanks, John. I'm pleased to hear that.
Is that an extension of the original, or is that the opposite side that was?
I think it's an extension of the original. There's not been anything definite put on paper as yet, but there has been 2 million put aside for the extension of the park and ride to reduce the traffic in Tyldesley.
The other side was the 150 space car park that they were going
to. Yeah,
but
like I say, I don't know because there's no definite plans as yet of exactly what's happening. You know, when, but the 2 million's aside for that project.
Right, that's good.
So obviously, once those details come out, and I get those details, I'll share those with you anyway. But like I say, at the minute, all I can say is that 2 million has been put aside to extend the park and ride, but exactly what they're going to do, I don't know as yet.
Okay, right. Any further questions of Alan or Ian? No. Right.
Yes.
Oh, go on, Kate. Yeah.
Julie has raised a question in the chat asking about the date for completion of the questionnaires for the survey, Alan. You're still muted, Alan.
Sorry about that. I think we've got the 30th of April on the form. And then what we'll be doing is we'll obviously collate all the information, and what's good about the system we're using, it all comes out as simple pie charts or bar charts, very easy to understand, and obviously that can go as a supplementary document for distribution.
Question for Alan.
Okay with that, yes, Ian.
Yes, hi, Alan. You're talking about doing a questionnaire for the youth people as well of Tyldesley. How are you going to initiate that, and how is that going to be put about?
Well, we've made some good contacts with some of the local youth workers, and similarly to what we've had to do in these COVID times, kids are brilliant digitally on phones and whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a sort of online questionnaire where we're not asking any details such as names and addresses. It's all going to be done anonymously. It's going to be simple, a visual questionnaire, and that will be completed. And the way it works is you tick all the questions, fill it in the way you want, and just press submit, and then it bounces back to us. So we'll have a return from that sort of demographic as part of the overall questionnaire.
So more action zone groups in schools.
Yeah, so can I also explain, sorry, I did miss this one out, I do apologise. We have a young lady called Elaine Creswell who part of her commission is she's going to be going into local schools. She's already made contact. Obviously it's a bit slow because of the start back being all currently underway, but she's come across with some design packs, and she's asking the children within the schools to come up with their ideas and concepts for how shops should look, how a shop could be, and that's going to be presented both graphically, verbally, and what she's trying to do is get one of the vacant shop fronts along the high street to display the material, so it'll become like an art exhibition showing what the kids think of their local area and all the issues going on. So that'll be really exciting.
Right, okay.
Right, any other questions?
Ian, why do you ask? Can you help us with this youth questionnaire?
Yes, I can.
Ian Williams, why does Ian Williams ask the question, and can you get involved with this youth questionnaire, Ian?
Yeah, sorry, Kate. I'm on the board of governors as well as Brian at Fred Longworth High School, which is the biggest school in the area, and that's why I was asking.
No, it's not.
Sorry, Brian.
It's not. St Mary's is bigger.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah.
Well, I thought they were about the same size.
Because
No, St Mary's quite a lot bigger. Remember, it's got a sixth form.
Yeah, sixth form. Yeah.
College, yeah.
Still gonna be bigger in 2 years' time.
Apparently, from what Elaine
Brenny's is
said,
fuller.
Yeah.
Sorry, speaking with Elaine, it's been actually taken up very well by the schools, and she's having to expand it to, you know, to take that on board. So it looks like we're gonna get some good work from the local children. Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Right, Anna.
Do I
Yes,
say
Anna.
You don't have to say it's all deflated, Brian. I don't know. No, all this. It was just to Richard. Just a question that I just quickly and I forgot to ask. You mentioned that there's an impending appraisal on the conservation map area around Tyldesley. In your experience, do they tend to sort of increase or can they decrease? Is there any format that they follow?
It all depends on what the outcome of the appraisal is, but it's I mean, one thing that we are keen to do across the borough is regularize a lot of our conservation areas, because the last time they were done, there's strange anomalies, like you might have noticed on the map I shared. There was a big hole in the middle of the conservation area. That doesn't make any sense to us. Looking at it, retrospectively. So in terms of increasing it, it may do, but it will just be to fill in the hole. Alternatively, we have got conservation areas in the borough where the original line was drawn through a building that no longer exists. And so we have taken that space out of the conservation area because there's nothing there anymore. It depends to what the situation on the ground is, really. So I'd say it's unlikely to get, given the size of it already, covering most of Elliott Street and the Arana Street, it's unlikely to get larger, is my gut feeling.
Who decides on the appraisals as well? Who decides on the appraisals?
Well, it'll be done between myself and my colleague Ian. And it will be also, there's a requirement for a community consultation element of it as well. So we'll be looking to work with as broad a brushstroke of the community as possibly. For Tyldesley, obviously, is a key organisation, as are the traders, to be involved in this. So we want to be as reflective of the area as possible. When conservation areas came about originally, there was no such thing as a conservation area appraisal, really. It was not a done thing. These are a much later addition because it's realised that actually a lot of conservation areas, we weren't asking the people who lived there or used there or worked there what they felt was important about their area. So it's something that we're very keen to be engaged with when we get around to it.
So it's businesses and residents alike.
Everyone, you've all got a stake in Tyldesley.
Right. Okay.
Okay, on that, right. Any others? Any more?
Yeah.
Right. Somebody said yes.
Gary.
Feel free, Gary.
Regarding Alan's presentation, I think we're all wanting to sort of want Tyldesley to lift its profile, tidy its act up, and hopefully make it a destination town for shoppers. And I've took stock of the town just recently, as I've mentioned earlier, with regards to the percentage of food and etc. And I've also got another list here of what I think is, again, fundamentally, it's you want shoppers to come to Tyldesley to shop. There are 35 industry-driven retailers, well, they're not retailers, but businesses in the town. So I don't see them as a retailer. I see them as a service industry, be it opticians, dentists, accountants, financial advisors, etc. And it goes on. There's 35 of those in the high street. I've mentioned the fact that there's 24 food places in there, and with respect, I don't see them as a as a shoe shop or a dress shop or a kiddie shop or a furniture shop or a light shop. Again, it's food. And then you've got the beauty section, which is another 14 units. Again, service industry. I work out that there's no more than 18 retailers in the town, actual retailers, true retailing people. So if I was a customer, I want to go, how can I be enticed into Tyldesley? It's great having all the shop fronts done, and let's say we get rid of all the shutters and we pedestrianise it. There's no shops in Tyldesley.
Fair point.
And that would concern me, having spent all these millions. You know, I'd like to drag, I actually do drag people in from Hindley, Bolton, Eccles, Loughton. So I do get people from out of town. They do come into the town. It's not just the Tyldesley people. But yeah, let's lift the profile of Tyldesley. But we need retailers in Tyldesley first. So that
I do totally agree. I think that the first process is to, in a way, keep what you already have. I think obviously because of the climate, shopping, the whole shopping experience and retail experience is being hammered from all sides. So I think first of all, you need to establish and retain what you have. I don't think it's an overnight solution, any of this. It's about laying the groundwork for the coming years on how to progress and move forward and pull people into the town and move forward from there. So I think it's a bit of a rolling stone. What you want, I think what I took from the first presentation was in Prescott, and I know Prescott, and it did have a very bad reputation. I'm glad he's not here. It was very rough, it was very run down, lots of shutters, but over the years it has changed its profile, and it's just started with a couple of seeds. A couple of shops have changed, took a new approach and set a standard which other shop owners took on board and said, well, actually that looks like it works. But that's offering a different experience. There's a bit more sort of street activity, a cafe sort of society started to be created. So I think it's a developing animal in a way. I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
I think what Gary's describing is the state of the UK high street, which we can't solve overnight, but many high streets would absolutely kill for a vet and a chemist and a dentist and a beautician and a tattoo shop, because actually we want lots of different reasons for people to come to the high street. And it's when you come in to consult your accountant that you might actually notice that there is a chip shop that's open at 7 o'clock, which is just exactly when you want to be getting your chips. Or that, you know, oh, I could have my hair cut next time I'm here. I hadn't realised there was a hairdresser's. So actually, although it doesn't feel good for you, the fact that you've got so little vacancy is something you really need to celebrate, because other places would be desperate to get your accountants and your dentists.
Yeah.
And a fruit shop. I must say that my local high street hasn't got one, and I miss it every day.
And we've got a butcher's back.
And a butcher's, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think people have realised that since COVID, they've obviously had shops quite local, and they've suddenly gone, actually, how useful is that to have a butcher's, a vet's, and all very local to me?
In comparison to other local areas, so like Atherton and even Leigh, the Tyldesley is quite rich in its independence, as in we tend to be sole traders, and we are slightly different, and we do have a lot of speciality that needs to be known about. But if you walk down, I know you were saying about the takeaways and things like that, and that's all you ever hear when it's put to the public on the Facebook. But if people didn't use them, they wouldn't be there. At least if they look tidy and they're nice and clean, and it's keeping the standard of the street, is amazing. But like when you walk down like Atherton, they're mainly bars, beauticians. That's all Atherton is now. And Tyldesley and Atherton used to be so rich in what they had. And I think there is still some pride that needs to be fed in our own area. So anything that can be done to increase that is great. And I think sort of from Anna's point of view, she speaks to quite a few of us in as much as we're not, I mean, I don't own my building, but I'd love to change the way that the shop looks. I'd love to have the front painted. I'd love to do things like that. That's out of my remit. But anything that makes it look nicer is okay. But as long as it's not, I think you answered the question, which was, you've drawn the line now, and so anything that's been done prior to that, you can't force those people to change it back. But I think had I bought this premises, I would have been unaware of all that you've said. I know you do your own research and everything, but I wouldn't have even thought of it as a conservation area. So by again raising its profile, however we do that with residents and businesses, it can only be a win-win, really. Yeah, so,
I don't think you're right, Julie. For Tyldesley, this CIC has Heritage Action Zone. It's a catalyst, and if that can imbue other developments that are also act as a catalyst to bring people in, it's fine. It's about that niche specialism. And somewhere along the line, maybe there's an opportunity for some joint marketing for putting together those specialists and the like. I mean, to me, the biggest revolution in shopping that occurred in Greater Manchester is the Warrington, and that was based on food changing. I mean, that took a lot of the merchandising retail units out of the market and replaced them with food retailers, but it's been a shot in the arm and brought in other traders to alter them. There's no one model fits all. We've got to look at what will work for Tyldesley. But Joe wanted to come in with a question. Joe Marshall.
Just going back to what you were saying there about, we've now got a fruit and veg shop. We've not had one for years. We've got the butchers. And I think if you look over the last couple of years, it's very, very slow, but it's happening that people are opening businesses in Tyldesley. We've got the children's clothes shop. A lot of towns don't have those. And she can obviously sell online as well. But I think that's what it is. And it's a case of waiting, as we build it up, the people will come. That's, but Rome wasn't built in a day, unfortunately. And I think that's what we need to look at, that when the place becomes more appealing, then maybe people will want to come and open the shops. And I think we just have to think more positive and then push forward on how we're going to do that. But I think you need that positivity because, why would somebody want to open a butcher's and why would somebody want to open a greengrocer's in Tyldesley if they have and they're doing well? Why did somebody want to open a children's clothes shop? They have, doing well. So, you need to look at that's your starting point. You go and ask them, why did you choose Tyldesley and how are you doing? What would you do to promote it? That was just my thought.
Okay. Any more questions, comments?
There's one other I would say, and that is we've got over 10 shops which are empty at the moment in Tyldesley. That are an eyesore. I think Ian mentioned that earlier. And there's one close to me, Wendy's old shop, which is attached to the town hall building, which is a mess in itself. An idea which I don't think would cost a hell of a lot of money would be to screen the front of the shop off with something like Heritage Town Centre coming, or watch this space, or in other words, take away the eyesore, and replace it with some information and sort of bit of positivity.
Do you want to come in on that, Ian?
Similar to what was said in the Owens presentation when he showed us that Max Spielman building. One of the windows had like a banner across it. Yeah. That type of thing. Not that much cost, literally something within the store that fits in the window. And if you look into Wendy's shop, for instance, it's disgusting. It really is shocking. I can't believe that's allowed, and it's actually attached to the town hall building.
Yeah, that building, excuse me, is going to be remodelled when the town hall gets remodelled. It's part of our match funding. But I have had a chat with Wendy who owns it, and I'm sure I can go and have another chat with her and see if we can do something and go and put something in the windows, a bit like I did with the old charity shop next to the Half Moon. I put one of the in there.
Yeah, just disguise the mess, basically. It's still there, but you disguise it.
Well, it'll go on the inside on the window, but I'm sure I can put something there with some images on.
Yeah.
And maybe take.
Well, we could promote what we're doing now. Put a bit of feel good into the town.
It is, yeah, and you know,
anything.
Yeah.
Another thing about that building as well is the amount of sort of overspill from the gutters that's actually affecting its structural integrity as well. I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, when you looked at, I mean, it's quite a few. I mean, is there anybody that we know locally that we can sort of get on, just, you know, to actually sort of do a gutter job for, you know, down the street? See if we can put it out to tender and see if there's somebody like a central number we can all call if it's done cheaply enough.
You're right on it there, yeah. I think we briefly touched on it a while ago, but we do want to do that as part of our creating awareness of heritage and the buildings, and a bit about building maintenance as well. I've been on a few little courses because before this I knew nothing about buildings at all, but now I understand that it all starts with roofs and gutters. You sort them out, you save yourself a lot of headaches further down the line. And I think that's why Cellar 5 went the way it did. That started with a leaky gutter, and that's what caused that to fall apart. So yeah, as part of so that'll be a community engagement activity, volunteers involved, and it's also creating awareness about local heritage. And yeah, I've already got a price in for someone, but someone else can put a price in, and we'll do it over a couple of weekends, and we'll go and do some gutter cleaning. I've got my marigolds ready. We're looking forward to doing that because with just a little bit of input, you can have a massive impact on the high street and the look of it. You won't have gutters overflowing when it's throwing it down, you know. And the
trees growing out of them.
Pardon?
So we've got trees growing out at the top of gutters.
Yeah. And I know we did 180 about 6 months ago. You know, that had like a forest growing out the front of it. But that wanted a bit of a haircut, and all the bushes and trees and plants have been removed from there because that's what causes the problem. I'm sure Kate will back me up on that because she deals with it a lot of the time. You know, just a little bit of maintenance makes a massive difference to the building. And again, that's about that pride, isn't it? Because people start pulling people. You got a tree in your gutter, get it sorted out. No, I'll start taking a bit of pride in the place.
But I mean, it's like it's not something that would need to be done annually. It's a biannual sort of job. You know, if it was sort of tasked to a local tradesman, a local roofing company, or you know, rather than us all individually getting, you know, our own tradesmen in. I mean,
Fort Tyldesley would do that. Fort Tyldesley would get some money to pay for that to happen, and then it'd happen once or twice a year. If we got a lot of volunteers involved, hog roast on a market square afterwards, do you know what I mean? So all the volunteers get fed and watered at the end of it, bringing the community together, creating a better footfall, you know, having a bit of fun in the town, but while we're cleaning it up. That's the sort of thing that we want to do with this community engagement.
Okay.
One thing that stopped us doing that, Anna, is flipping COVID this year. We would have been out doing it already.
COVID. So it's got a lot to answer for us, COVID.
There's got a big spanner in the works for this first year, but, you know, out of the 68 hazards in the UK, ours in Tyldesley is head and shoulders above any of the others. We've hit our spend targets. We've got builders on site doing stuff on buildings. No one's doing that, you know. I've not had to concentrate on COVID, have I? But all these local authorities, you know, they've had their turned by COVID. I was able to plan on with the help of you guys. You know, we've been able to overcome it and plow on and deliver quite a lot of good stuff.
Well, that's a positive note to sort of come to some sort of conclusions on. And I noticed one or two people, Gemma and Julie, have had to say cheerio. So I sort of try and draw this to a conclusion. I mean, I think we've had a really interesting discussion this afternoon, covered an awful lot of areas, and there's food for thought, not just for the the project, you know, those of us involved with the Fort Tyldesley, but there's also questions for the council as well, and the conservation area, and you know, the appraisal that's Richard's talked about. So that, you know, we're moving forward. I think you've given some ideas now about areas we need to perhaps concentrate on and put more effort into. You know, Alan's working on the town guide. The two Kates are working there supporting the Tyldesley, you know, the Fort Tyldesley projects, and I think we're ready to sort of spring forward. But as Ian says, you know, very much dependent on how quickly town centres and all of us can be released from the grip of COVID. But you know, I'd say not too quickly, because we don't want to go backwards. So I mean, if there's nothing else, that burning questions that people anxiously want to raise, can I sort of, in conclusion, say thank you all very much for your contributions. That it's been, I think, a really useful discussion, and I think, you know, you've given us some ways to move forward. But if there's anything you feel you want to get the Fort Tyldesley board to look at, you know, fire them into Ian, and you know, we'll pick them up and deal with them as best we can. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'll say thank you all very much for your varied contributions. Don't take it to heart, Anna. I'm listening. I'm taking it all in.
I take nothing to heart, but I just say it as I see it.
Yeah, well, that's as it should be. That's as it should be.
I can come across a bit blunt sometimes, but you know, it's just, I've always got my business head. I always think of my business head, and I just think, you know, it's pounds, shillings, and pence. I mean, especially with the challenging year that we've just had as well as businesses. You know, you've got to sort of look at the reserve.
Yeah, we've got to. It's an element. You know, it's no good putting up forward pie in the sky proposals that can't be supported and won't take off. So
I was just going to say, on a positive note, you know, we're all aware of the houses that are being developed all in and around the area, which is more and more people coming in. And I've seen people come into the store, and they're obviously from out of town, so they're fresh people that have bought properties. Just where I am here, there's 300, 400 houses going up, and everywhere you look, all these properties are going up. They need somewhere to go, they need somewhere to shop, they need somewhere to get the hair done, they need somewhere to get food and so on. So we need to, if we can, on a positive note, get the profile of the town centre lifted. Let's tidy up, just the basic tidying up job, i.e. those windows, and let's get rid of that scaffolding. And just try and put a smile on the face, so that we can entice people in, because these people have all got a few bob. They're all buying 300, 400,000 pound houses. So, you know, let's get them into the town somehow. Let's get them in.
I think so many people will be so relieved when that scaffolding finally comes down off the Martin's building.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the residents. I mean, I know obviously the traders will be, but I mean, more so the residents will be so relieved to see the back of that scaffolding when that eventually comes down. I mean, hopefully it's only going to be up for about another month or so, 6 weeks, I'd say. Well, go on, Joanne. Do you know more on that?
I don't actually know, but something I do want to just quickly bring up, because I think it would be devastating if we lost this business. Emma from the pet shop needs bigger premises, and she's actually looking outside of Tyldesley because there is nothing. So if anybody knows of anything, because if we lose Hudson's, we've lost one of the main pulls into the town. So if people can sort of have a think about it, I will be very sorry to see that go, because
into the pharmacy, because pharmacies moving out, aren't they? Not big enough.
Not big enough. It's no bigger than what they're in.
How big a premises is she on the lookout for?
a biggish one. See, they can't use the floors upstairs because they're not safe. They won't take the weight of the freezers.
Well, there you go then. When Aldi eventually moves, what about the Aldi site?
She has thought about that, but I don't think that's within a rent.
That'd be very expensive. Very expensive.
Is that something we could do? Could we fix the floors and make the building more useful?
Go and have a chat with him, Ian.
Big structural problem there.
I was asking Kate that one.
Go and have a chat with her because they were going to put things upstairs, but like I say, then they found out that the floor just wouldn't take it. But it's getting to the point where she's a victim of her own success because she can't stock enough stuff for the amount of trade that she's got. So it's like it is a victim of her own success, but I don't want to see that business move out of this town because that's a lot. That brings a lot of footfall into Tyldesley.
It does.
Well, something for us to think about then.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks for that, Joanne. Yes, Joanne. The other Joanne, Marshall. Go on.
I'm not sure if the traders are aware. They should have been contacted by now, but next Saturday they're going to close Elliott Street again while they take down the scaffolding from Cellar 5.
Yeah.
And I'll be totally honest with you, I was appalled at them allowing to do it on a Saturday. I did try and fight the corner to say, why on earth on the busiest shopping day of the week do you want to close the road again? Why can't they do it on a Sunday? But it sounds to me like they won't pay the contractors to do it on a Sunday. Because they're saying, well, the contractors won't do it on a Sunday. Now I'm thinking, no, they will if you give them enough wonga. But so I did try and say, well, could you not move it to another Sunday if they can't do it on this particular Sunday? No, they can't do it on a Sunday. So I think that's what that was probably about. So I'm sorry, I did try and fight the corner, but it is only for that one day, or it better had been. I'll throw myself off the scaffolding.
I think whichever day you pick, it would be. It's a case of it's just a pain that we're just gonna have to sort of bear.
But Sunday would have been better, obviously, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, like you say, there's not many people that want to work on the Sundays. They want the day off, don't they? So you can respect that. But I mean, it's good that obviously we got the notification last Friday. Friday was it? Friday. From Stuart sent it through to everybody. Sent it through to the communal email, so we fired it out.
Yeah, we had the discussion, and I said I weren't happy about it being on a Saturday, and make sure that the traders are informed this time, and not to leave it to the last minute. So just make sure that you are aware.
Yeah.
Right, as long as they publicise the diversion and closure in advance, so people can plan for it.
That's the other thing. Apparently, there's supposed to be signs going up. They said they started to put them up, because they're trying to make sure that the HGVs, etc., don't use the diversion.
Yeah.
So at the bottom of Princess Avenue and
Okay then.
Well, luckily it doesn't affect me because we can't open until the 15th of April anyway, or the 12th of April. So.
Is that your first day back in now, Gary?
Pardon?
Is that your first day back in? Is it the 12th?
I think we're the 12th, yeah.
Right.
Can I just ask one, just a quick one?
Go on, Ian.
It's to Anna, really, because obviously we have our normal project board meetings, but do you want to slot one of these joint events in again, Anna, in the future?
What do you traders think? I think if you had said one every 4 months, one every 3 to 4, one a quarter, I think.
Yeah.
Would be.
Sounds good.
So that everybody's kept
very useful.
Going on, and you can obviously ask your own questions to the board.
Yeah, it feels like you're asking everybody else's questions on their behalf today. I'm a bit disappointed, really. I was hoping there'd be a few more traders here, so that at least Alan could try and solicit some more responses from the traders. But 32 is quite good, I think. But it'd be nice to have some more.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
Okay.
In the posters up, and again to Phil Ashton too, thanks for putting we didn't just go digital, we also had paper copies as well for those people that don't use digital media. So thanks to the traders as well that displayed the old school paper copies for me. help me reach out to the residents with those as well.
I've still got people taking out of those, you know, probably about half of those what you dropped off the other week have gone as well. So they're still taking them. So, you know, and I'm saying, you know, just complete it online if you can.
Yeah, that's great. Or find a grandchild or a child who's digital and media savvy to for you.
Okay, right. Well, with that, can we once again thank you all, and I'll draw this meeting to a close and say yes, we will have another of these 3-4 months time, and or whenever there's something that's you know, requires discussion with the traders. You know, there will be things coming up during the Fort Tyldesley project that will lend themselves to this sort of discussion, and yeah, we'll pick that up as and when the time arises. So thank you all for your many varied contributions, and I'll let you all get off screen now and make those of, well, I think everybody's probably at home, aren't they? So no safe journeys to make. Thank you all very much. Cheers.
I'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Still on for next week, yeah?
Here's into the project board meeting. Yeah.
All right then.
Right, thanks everybody.
Bye. Bye.